I had a Chihuahua.
Right. Okay.
Honestly, I've got to tell you this story. So I saw a Chihuahua and we brought it as a family. Even though we, as Muslims, we're not supposed to keep dogs. But my mom loved it. I loved it. I used to take it for walks without a lead because he used to go, just follow me everywhere.
A chihuahua.
A Chihuahua. And then one day, I come back from school and this Chihuahua's disappeared.
Oh,
I'm looking for this Chihuahua and I couldn't find it. And I says, Mom, where's the dog gone?
I'm guessing your dad's taking it away somewhere.
No, my mom sold it.
Oh, right.
She sold it because he peed in the house.
Oh, right. Okay.
So
Well,
she
that's-
sold it. And you know what? I cried. I cried for ages and ages. You get this bond with an animal, and that was one of them. And I've never forgiven my mom since.
There you go. You heard it first here on Radio Ramadan.
So yeah, Goldie was his nickname.
Okay.
But not nickname, it was his name. Uh, so it's great. You've told the telephone numbers, text messages. If you want to get in touch with us today, please do so. We've got loads of stories. Shall I start with the first story?
Go for it.
Or shall we say Ari's?
stories?
No, I'll start. It's my show and I'll start.
Go on.
How about that?
Go on.
Yeah, go on.
Not really, it's our show. This one's called The Sweeter Apple. A lovely girl was holding 2 apples in her hand. Her mom came and softly asked her little daughter with a smile, "My sweetie, could you give your mom one of your apples?" The girl looked up at her mom for some seconds, then she suddenly took a quick bite of one apple and then quickly on the other apple. The mom felt the smile on her face freeze, but she tried hard not to reveal her disappointment. Then the little girl handed one of her bitten apples to her mom and said, "Mommy, here you are. This is a sweeter one."
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's nice, isn't it?
Really nice.
And
Yeah.
that also reminded me of a story of our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And it's called Sour Grapes. Do you remember that story, Ari?
Yeah, I do.
Can you expand on it?
Basically, so some poor man bought some grapes to our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and normally he would share his stuff with all his sahabas, but this time he didn't. He ate all the grapes in front of the poor man, not sharing it to any of the sahabas. Later, when they were all together, the sahabas asked the Prophet, "Why didn't you share any with us? You always do. Why haven't you?" And he said, "Because the grapes were sour. If he gave the sahabas one of them, they might have made a face and upset the poor man."
Oh,
So-
alhamdulillah. What a beautiful story.
And you know what, Ari's fair play to you for remembering that story. Absolutely fantastic. Well done to you. So yeah, there's always something behind a story, isn't there?
Absolutely, and especially given all the stuff that our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did, there's always a message behind it, and what a beautiful message, not
Very
wanting to
caring.
upset someone.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So we'll carry on. Shabazz, do you want to carry on?
Yeah. So we've got a story coming out from a law perspective. So we've called it "Don't Judge." So a woman who was the first deputy district judge to wear a hijab said she hoped to be a trailblazer. So Rufia Arshad, a member of St Mary's Chambers in Nottingham, received her letter of appointment as judge for the Midlands Circuit last week. She said, "I don't see it as a personal achievement, it's bigger than that." And Judge Arshad, who's the first in her family to go to university, said she had broken down stereotypes and encouraged others that no matter what the profession, to aim high. So yeah, fantastic news. The first
Yeah, good.
hijab-wearing judge in the UK.
Brilliant stuff.
And-
Going places, aren't we?
Yeah. On TikTok, meet the dancing granny who has 30 million views. 88-year-old granny who's smashing it on TikTok. 30 million views for dancing.
30
Wow.
million views.
I could get 30 million views. I mean, now it's hard to get that many views. Everyone's trying, but it's not that easy to get that many.
So what's so good about this dance then? Iris? No doubt you've...
I guess it's just a trend where people dance, and she's managed to get 30 million views.
Fantastic. Does she get paid?
Probably not, but it's still fame.
Fantastic.
I think these social media sites, after you've hit so many millions, they do start paying you.
Yeah.
But what's an 80-year-old going to do with that much
Yeah.
money?
I think it's just a claim to fame for her. But yeah, crazy news.
There's me trying to get 100
Listeners.
and she's got 30 million. We're doing something wrong, aren't we?
Yeah.
We are.
Prince Philip turned 99 this week.
Happy birthday.
But, you know, many years back, I know I shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. I always wanted to put a bet on that this is the year he's going to pass away. But Prince Philip's still alive. Queen also celebrating her birthday this week. Her birthday was a month or 2 months ago, but she celebrates it with the trooping of the colour, and that was yesterday. And I saw a little tweet this week, and it says, both don't want to die, because if they do, they have to face Princess Diana.
Excellent. So there's been a lot happening from a protest perspective this week, Khalid. As you're probably aware, in London, tens and thousands of people took part in Black Lives Matter protests across the UK on Sunday, even tearing down the statue of slave trader Edwin Colston in Bristol, and also spraying graffiti on the statue of former Prime Minister Winston Churchill. Now, before I continue with the story, what's your take on this, Khalid? Because I agree that absolutely the protesting it needs to be done. If you look at what's happening in the West Midlands, the protests have been extremely peaceful, especially the one that happened in Wolverhampton this week. However, graffitiing statues and vandalising, I think it's a little bit too far for me. What's your thoughts?
We discussed this a few weeks ago. I think it's absolutely terrible. There's means of protesting, but I think this encourages some third parties to come out as well. So like,
and some people are going too far.
yeah. You know, like the EDL groups. It just ignites them a bit.
Well, what's happened is and there's been people who have actually now gone to the statues to protect them. So there's people trying to vandalise statues. There's people trying to protect statues. I think we're kind of missing the point of what we're trying to do here. You know, this is a protest for Black Lives Matter, and you know, people of the ethnic community to be heard. So yeah, I think there's ways that we can go around it, which would be slightly better than vandalising Winston Churchill's statue, for instance.
Do you think that they should change the name from Black Lives Matter to like All Lives Matter? Because it does. It's every life, isn't it?
It is
Everyone should be treated the same, and that's the point that the world needs to come across. Everyone should be treated the same, but it isn't.
No, it's not. And I think from a Black Lives Matter perspective, I think given what's happened in America with George Floyd, you know, the way that black people are treated, not only in America but across the country, I think that's why the focus is more on Black Lives Matter. What's your thoughts, Iris?
I mean, all lives do matter, including black lives. But when people say all lives matter, sometimes black lives don't include of that, because they really need to bring more attention to Black Lives Matter. But everyone does matter.
Grand stuff. Great. Don't forget, telephone lines are open. If you do want to give us a call today, you can text in. The number is 07 440 420 432, or you can phone us live. That competition is now open. And 01902 972 150. All you have to do is ring in, pick a number between 1 and 30. If you're a non-Muslim, we'll give you a general knowledge question. If you're a Muslim, you'll give you an Islamic question. How about that?
Make sure you phone in, because they're not. Some are hard, but some are easier this week.
Can listeners choose if they want a Islamic question or a non-Islamic question?
No. What we're going to do is, if it's a Muslim name, so if you come up and say my name's Abdul, you're going to get Islamic question. Sorry.
But you're going to have a lot of Johns and Daniels calling now, aren't you? For those general.
Well, you know what? I'm a pretty good expert to know if it's an English person or an Asian person ringing in. We'll figure you out. So please don't lie to us, okay? Because this is a Islamic radio station. We don't want people lying to us, and we'll be honest and open with you as well today. So, Shabazz, any more stories on your side?
Yeah, so just touching on sort of the Black Lives Matter, a topic of news in the week, trending especially, was the alarming lack of black leaders in sport. So of the 12 leading sports governing bodies in the UK, only one board member exists from a black, Asian or ethnic minority background. So again, just a topic of discussion for us guys today. So if you look at the FA, for instance, not one black person or someone from an ethnic minority on the board there. The RFU, the Lawn Tennis Association, England Golf, British Cycling. The only place that a black person exists on the board is UK athletics. We've got a British wheelchair racer called Anne Wafula. But if you just think, I mean, look at the amount that black people have done for sports in general in the country. If you think about athletics, when I was growing up, you know, Linford Christie, for instance, was a trailblazer. And especially look at football itself. I mean, the England team itself, it's always got, you know, at least 50% black people playing there.
Yeah.
However, you know, there's no one in the community. So, yeah, I just thought it was an alarming statistic that only one black leader exists within the 12 sports. So just some of your thoughts.
Disappointing again, isn't it?
It
It's
is.
really, in this day and age, we should have lots of Asians, Chinese people at the forefront of any sport or anything really.
Yeah.
I bet you doctors, there's loads of Asian people at the forefront, isn't there?
I can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine. No, I mean, from my perspective, it's just given the amount especially the black community has given to sport in the UK, I would have expected there to be more of a representation. However, you know, hopefully this will be a time for change. I think what's happening across the world will make everyone stand up and do what's right.
Ari's
Burger that becomes an unidentifiable flying object. This burger took a trip into space before falling back to Earth with a bump. The meaty snack was sent up in a styrofoam box attached to a weather balloon with a GoPro inside to capture all the action. So they tied a burger to a balloon and sent it up into space. Wow.
why would you do that?
I don't know. Some people are just...
I think the lockdown's taking its toll on a lot of people.
Yeah.
What's happening is people are just getting bored now, aren't they? And they're trying anything just to get into the news. Just like this person, he put a message on Twitter and TikTok and Facebook, a road sign. Anyone see that?
No.
It said Mirpur Close.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and it should be somewhere in Coventry. So I had a detailed look into this, and I went into postcode finder, you know, where you want to find the postcode, and guess what?
What?
Doesn't exist. So it's fake news, but it's all photoshopped, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And honestly, terrible.
So does this place actually exist, Meadport Close, or has someone just made it up?
It's someone just
Made
made
it.
it up and then put it on social media.
Oh, wow.
And what it does is people start looking at it and thinking, yeah, this really does exist, and why can't we have other names of streets like this? But no, it's not there at all.
Fantastic.
Well, man dyes his dog to look like a panda. A video showing what appears to be a panda walked across a busy road in a city centre sparked outrage when it surfaced online. He actually painted his dog to look like a panda. It caused a heated debate when it was posted online, but it turned out the animal isn't a panda at all.
Again, I think the lockdown's taking its toll on a lot of people there. Why would you do that?
I don't know again. I mean, just for the reactions, probably.
Salam, brother Khalid. Great show as always. The tweet about Princess Diana made me laugh. Salam to brother Shabazz and Ari's. Keep up the good work.
Assalamu alaikum, and who is that from?
Unknown.
Guys, please put your names,
Yeah.
please, so we can give you a shout out.
And I've got another story here. This one, during the week, I'll tell you a story behind it. What happened is, a couple of weeks ago, Alvina wanted me, I asked Alvina if somebody out there could sell me a Walkman, a Sony Walkman cassette player.
Okay.
And, you know, surprise, surprise, somebody actually did ring me up. And I went down, I picked this Walkman up, £5.
Okay.
It cost me
Not
£5.
bad.
Was this on her swap shop?
It was on a swap shop
Okay.
show. And I started listening to it back home. And I've been listening to some of my shows I've been doing 20 years ago.
Okay.
And in some of them, I've interviewed Ashwarya Rai. I've
Fantastic.
had fantastic discussions with yourself, Shabazz, as well.
Yes, I remember.
And I came across this little story I'd done. And I thought, you know what, I want to do it again. So 20 years later, for the new generation, this is a little story that I hope you guys could relate to. So a poor farmer loses his axe in the river. He starts crying and asks God for help. God turns up and brings a gold axe from the river and says to the farmer, "Is this yours?" The poor farmer says, no. God brings up a silver axe and says, is this yours? And the farmer says, no. Then God brings his actual axe that he lost and says, is this yours? And he said, yes. God rewarded him by giving him all 3 axes.
MashaAllah.
A few months later, the poor farmer has taken his wife farming, and accidentally she fell into the river, and the farmer starts crying for help. God appears and goes into the river and brings out Angelina Jolie. Is this your wife? The farmer said, yes, 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 it is. God is very disappointed with the poor farmer. The poor farmer says to God, please, please understand. If I said no, you would have then brought Julia Roberts from the river. Then I would have had to say, no, she's not my wife. Then you would have brought up my beautiful wife, and I would have had said yes. And you would have let me keep all 3. But I am a poor man and I can't look after them all.
Great story. That does bring back some memories. That was 20 years ago, right?
That was exactly 20 years ago, Shabazz. And, we used to have lots of fun. And we're trying to do the same on this radio show as well.
But this is going to be better.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. I've got a bit of a quirky story coming out of India. Vande Bharat. So what is Vande Bharat, Khalid?
Vande is going out or something, and Bharat is the boy side.
Well, the government of India have announced a series of repatriation flights under its Vande Bharat mission to return Indians stranded abroad back home. So they've called it Vande Bharat. I don't know why they've called it that. But travellers in India wishing to return to the UK will be able to book seats on the outbound flights to India to the UK. So yeah, an initiative coming out of India called Vande Bharat to take everyone back home.
Mad stuff.
Lego unveils its first drivable car. What happens when you take 1 million Lego bricks and add a 5.3 horsepower engine? What do you get? A life-sized drivable car.
Wow.
Luxury car maker Bugatti teamed up with Lego to make this vehicle. It's powered using more than 2,000 power platform engines and took more than 13,000 hours to design and make, with a top speed of 20 kilometers per hour.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Ibrahim, my son, would absolutely
Yeah.
love that, to be fair.
It was pretty cool.
So is it real or is it just a concept? Or
No, it is real. They actually built it and it actually drove on the
so
road.
the whole car's made of Lego?
Yep.
Wow.
And it looks like a Bugatti.
Fantastic.
Shabazz, I'm surprised your son hasn't got one yet.
For the amount of Lego he has got, I'm trying to limit the amount of Lego because it goes everywhere. Every time we do the Hoover, you can hear bits going up, and it's not cheap. Lego, it's really expensive. You can buy the non-Lego stuff for a lot cheaper, but if you want actual Lego, it's. I didn't realise how expensive it was.
Actually, talking about toys, I've got a bone to pick with you.
Okay.
Do you know why?
No, about toys, did you say?
About toys.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I was supposed to bring some toys in for Alvina.
Yeah.
It's still on the radar.
Yeah.
But I've been preparing for this show, Khalid. It's taken.
I know it
so-
takes weeks to
know,
prepare for one show,
yeah,
but
it's-
why didn't you get the kids? Get the kids to say, what toys you don't want, put them on one side,
right.
and let them do the work.
Right.
Use your head.
Or we could just ask my wife live on air. So Amna, we need some toys to bring in next week. So
Because otherwise we are letting young Alvina down, aren't we, on the Swap Shop show?
we will bring
And
some.
we need to support her. Like Fiaz Ahmed just texted as well. Yesterday I listened to his show, and the amount of times he pumped our show up to say, listen to us.
Thank you.
So
Fiaz.
grateful. So thank you very much, Fiaz. And he's back on air again next Saturday on
What
Shami
a
Night.
great show. What a
Beautiful. You know what? It's taken my life over. Normally it's Prison Break or what's that program again? It's just gone off out of my head.
Game of Thrones.
Article.
Oh,
Or Game of Thrones. I always look at that. But now it's Shami Night with Fiaz Ahmed.
Mashallah.
Mashallah. A couple more minutes until the break. I've got to say this story. I've had a message from one of our loyal listeners in Manchester. Her name's Sadaf from Manchester. And this message is regarding racism. It's something on a serious note. She said, when I was 11, I got racially abused, bullied daily by 15, 16-year-olds in my school, as I was the only Asian person. I received a nonsense comment on my business page as I had posted it below. So for those of you who have an issue with protests in the UK, you don't understand racism hurts. Obviously, I don't like to see the protests get violent, but all lives matter. And so a gentleman replies to sort of saying that not all lives matter, and I will go to an English company with my business.
Okay.
Sadaf then replied by saying, I do work for an English company. I am English also, but please do look elsewhere.
Wow. That's
So
quite a powerful message there from a racism perspective.
it is, it's, you know, I think you've got to be in an Asian person or a black man's shoes to actually feel racism. And I don't think, you know, some English people do. And to be fair, I see more English people protesting than Asian people.
And,
Yeah.
and how good is that?
It does feel good. And, you know, inshallah, you know, without causing any problems and issues and violence, I hope the message comes across this time round, and that everyone in the future is obviously treated equally.
Absolutely. I think given, especially yourself and myself, Khalid, we're kind of the first generation in the UK. And RSU being a second generation.
Yeah.
So I think we've all experienced racism in some forms growing up. The school that I went to, I think me, my sister, my brother, again, were the only Asians in the school, suffered racism pretty much every day. But it's something that you have to live with and deal with. And you'd like to think that the vast majority of the public aren't racist at all.
We'll be back very, very soon after these few words. I've got telephone lines on now open for that competition. Looking forward to hearing from you. Welcome back to RamadanRadioWars.com around the world. It is 11 o'clock. Stories of the week with Khalid, Shabazz and Aris. We're going to start off with Shabazz, who's going to go around the world for 80 seconds or so, Shabazz.
80 seconds or so being the big caveat there. But again, we're going to do this segment on a weekly basis. We're going to take you around the world on a whistle-stop tour and keep you updated and fascinated about the worldly events taking place. So stopping off at Portugal. So over 100 fans climb onto the roof of a stadium to watch their team play a game of football. So the Portuguese league has now resumed, with all games being played behind closed doors. But this didn't stop FC Porto fans eager to catch a glimpse of the action and their stars. They climbed the stadium roof, sang songs, waved flags, and even lit flares. Now, FC Porto beat Maritimo 1-0, with the goal being scored by, now, I'm not making this up, this is God's honest truth, Jesus Corona.
You joking?
No, I'm not joking. So, yeah, Jesus Corona scored the winner for FC Porto. That made me giggle this week. Moving across into Israel, an amazing story coming out of Israel. So 2,500 rare texts from the Islamic world to go online for free. So the rare manuscripts and books from the Islamic world, covering a period of more than 1,000 years, are to be made freely available online. The National Library of Israel in Jerusalem is digitizing its world-class collection of items in Arabic, Persian and Turkish, dating back to the 9th and to the 20th centuries, including spectacularly beautiful Qurans and literacy works decorated in gold leaf. So, the National Library in Israel is digitising all of their material.
It's be good for the future as well, for everyone to get access to.
Absolutely, yeah. So at the moment, you can only get access by visiting the actual library itself, but having access to that online. Unfortunately, I can't read Arabic, Persian or Turkish myself, but no doubt there'll be English translations. But yeah, so 2,500 rare texts being made available. Really good news coming out of Israel. Moving across into Pakistan, a bit of bad news in Pakistan. So former Pakistan captain Shahid Afridi says he has tested positive for coronavirus. Afridi, who is now 40 years of age, wrote on Twitter, I've been feeling really unwell since Thursday. My body has been aching badly and I've been tested, unfortunately. I'm COVID-19 positive. Need prayers for a speedy recovery. The all-rounder has played over 5,000 international cricket games for Pakistan across all formats, making his debut in 1996. So, wishing Shahid Afridi a speedy recovery. One of my favourite cricketers of all time.
He's a character, isn't he?
He is, yeah, and a great all-rounder. And he does a lot for the community in Pakistan as well. Just a real nice, humble guy. So I've heard. I don't know him personally.
I know Waka Yunus.
Yes, Waqar Younis. You know Waqar Younis?
Of course I do.
Okay.
He was born in the Pend where my mum was brought up in. Buriwala.
In Buriwala, wow. That's our family shared as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know he was from Buriwala.
Yeah, Google him. Waka Yunus, born in Buriwala, Pakistan.
The best in-swinging Yorker in history. If you don't know what an in-swinging Yorker is, get onto YouTube and look it up. Okay. Moving across into the Czech Republic. So this is going to make you laugh, Khalid. Poland invades Czech Republic by mistake. So Poland has admitted to briefly invading the Czech Republic last month in what the Polish Defence Ministry described as a misunderstanding. So Polish troops guarding the frontier as part of the coronavirus measures took up positions by a chapel on the Czech side of the border and apparently stayed there for several days. The soldiers even prevented Czech visitors from accessing the site. As Poland has described the incident as a mistake, although the Czech foreign minister has said that he is yet to receive an official explanation. So imagine that, invading a country by mistake.
Wow.
Can I just jump into a country while you're there? Saudi Arabia, a formal decision regarding Hajj 1441 will be announced by the Saudi government this week. But the following countries have already cancelled Hajj for their citizens. They are Indonesia, Brunei, South Africa, India, Malaysia, France, Singapore, Australia, and New Zealand. So none of them countries will be attending the Hajj this year.
Really sad news.
It is sad news, and unfortunately that's something that we can't really
Well, I think
get involved in.
I think these measures have to be put in place to protect the public. So that's covering off your stories from around the world. If you have got any stories from Pakistan, from the US, from Africa, wherever you might be listening from in the world, we would love to hear from you.
Aris, we're going to talk about the competition first. Come on.
All right. I want everyone to call in. The number is 01902 972 150. There is Islamic questions for our Muslim listeners and general knowledge English questions for our English listeners.
Some of the texts already coming in so far this morning. We've got one here. It says, no worries, I'm on it, Shabazz. I'm sure there is a large collection of Star Wars toys in the office.
No. So,
what's she on about?
yeah, so I can't believe I'm discussing this on radio, but I'm a big Star Wars fan.
You're not?
I am, yes, and I've amassed quite a tidy collection of Star Wars toys, but no one's allowed to touch them. They're my toys, so sorry, Alvina, you're not having any of my Star Wars toys. But no, I'm sure we've got a lot of stuff lying around the house that we'll happily bring in.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers. Really enjoying the show, brothers. Allah bless you all to carry on bringing smiles, knowledge, and news updates. Well done, your sister Hadia.
Thank you, Hadia.
Thank you very much, Hadia. And we've got one more. Salam, guys. Thanks for the mention. Top show as always. Aris, your stories are hilarious. That's from Sadaf.
Thanks, Sadaf. Aris, this
Thanks.
competition, so I know I had a go last week. We're not getting many callers just
I
yet.
mean,
So
they are easy this week, so everyone call in. You'll probably get it right.
I'll tell you what, let's kick off proceedings by asking me a question.
All right.
So what you got to do, Shabazz, is pick a number between
1 and 30.
1 and 30. And since you are a Muslim,
I am Muslim,
we shall ask you a Muslim question.
Well, I had an Islamic question last week, so can I go for a general knowledge question? Or is
Listen,
that
I'm
allowed?
not in charge of the competition.
I mean,
He's boss man.
If you really want to, then yeah, sure.
You make the call, Aris. Go on.
All right. I'll give you a general knowledge question then.
Go on then.
Even though anyone who's Muslim has to do an Islamic questions, but I'll give you one off.
Fine. So what? How many questions are there?
1 to 34.
1 to 34. I will pick number 30.
Number 30.
Yeah.
Okay. Who was the president of the United States of America before Donald Trump?
Before Donald
Before
Trump.
Donald Trump. I know this one.
I know this one as well.
You know, I was about to say George Bush.
Yeah.
Could you believe I was about to say George Bush? It was Barack Obama.
Yeah, correct.
Correct?
Yeah.
You've just won yourself 12 ounces of gold.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Oh, see, if anyone would have phoned in early, they would have won that. But now they can't have that. Shabazz, you've got it.
Fantastic.
Some more stories coming up here. This one here. Okay, I like this one, so hopefully you guys will get involved. And it will take you back to one of our previous shows as well. This British man rescued after 6 days trapped in Barley Well. So Jacob Roberts, 29, broke his leg after falling into a 4-metre deep well in Pakatu village while being chased by a dog, say local authorities. The well was dry, but his leg meant he was unable to get out. Witnesses say there was a small amount of water in the well, which likely kept him alive. Mr. Roberts' cries of help were eventually heard by a local resident. So this story reminded me of a story that I've done with Hafiz Fiaz on stories of the prophets. One of our prophets actually fell in a well, or was thrown into a well by his brothers. Can you remember, guys?
No.
No? Aris, no?
No, I can't remember.
You sure? And you're my loyal listener.
I am your loyal listener, but
Prophet.
I cannot remember.
You can't put us on the spot like that, Khalid. Come on.
Come on, you guys should have been loyal. Okay, I'll leave it to the listeners then. Somebody ring in and give these two guys the answer. Which prophet was thrown into the well? We've got loads of people just texting in now. Give us a call, 01902 972 150.
Fantastic. Again, some more news coming out of Pakistan. Not great news, unfortunately. Rumours, fear and rising COVID-19 deaths in Pakistan. Doctors in Pakistan are warning that the country's already weak healthcare system could soon be overwhelmed by the coronavirus pandemic. So far, with fewer than 2,000 deaths, the outbreak hasn't been as deadly as some initially feared. But with the rate of new cases and new fatalities at the highest levels yet, the lockdown restrictions lifted, doctors say intensive care units are now being stretched almost to the capacity in major hospitals. So I was speaking to my cousins a few days ago. Lockdown seems to be on and off in Pakistan, but yeah, not good, unfortunately. Not good at the moment.
Well-known pizza shop shares a trick to reheat pizza in the microwave without it going soggy.
Oh, I want to listen to this.
Experts at this pizza place have revealed a method to reheat pizza quickly in the microwave without turning the crust soggy, and it's an absolute game changer. The pizza experts have said if you place your pizza in the microwave alongside a cup of water and put it in the microwave for 30 seconds, not only will you get quick results, but pizza will also remain crispy. This way it won't go soggy.
So this is the type of news that we need. So,
Yeah.
you know,
So just put the pizza in along with a cup of water.
and you'll just get a perfect pizza.
Yep.
The only problem is in my household, there's no pizza left over. So we just yam it all down. So there's nothing left over for the morning. Some more text messages coming in. I've got this one. It's another racism story. And I'll talk about it. Hi, Cal, talking about racism. When I came to this country with my family in 1990, I too encountered racism by a lot of black and Asian people.
Okay.
So this is something a different angle. Most of the people, my teachers and employees, were all white and very supportive. The people who called me names like shorter version of Pakistan were black. Once in a park, a black boy called me and my friend Tintin threw a lot of wood at me, which hit me and caused a wound.
That's terrible.
The Pakistanis were just as bad, calling me an immigrant and told me to go back on my banana boat. I stuck up for myself and got into fights. Once I got cornered by 3 girls who attacked me. I fought back, and from that day onwards, they never came near me again, as they realised I wasn't weak.
So there you have it. Racism is prevalent in all forms of life. It doesn't matter where you're from. So really, really sorry to hear that story.
It is.
And
It's,
I hope,
it's terrible, isn't it? It just highlights that racism isn't just from one angle, is it? It's from different angles.
No. And I bet there's white people who've had racism in some capacity as well. No doubt, predominantly large Asian or black areas. You know, I know I have white people who feel intimidated at times going to those areas. So absolutely, racism is there in all forms of life, and we need to eradicate it as soon as possible. And hopefully we're going some way to doing that on this show.
Aris?
As I was on the topic of pizza on my last story, man's attempt to reheat food on packed flight leaves passengers baffled. Rather than eating it cold, which seems like the logical choice considering he was on an aeroplane, he decided that it would taste better warm. Asking the crew for help to heat it up was a long shot he wasn't willing to take. So instead, he turned on the overhead light above his seat and held the slice millimeters from the bulb and hope it would cook. I don't know why
The
he's
things
done that.
people do, hey?
You can't make things up, can
No.
you? Hi, Salam Kal, great show as always, very informative. Well done to you and to your co-hosts, brothers Shabazz and Aris. That's from Freya. And we have got an answer to the question I said, which prophet was thrown into the well? It was Prophet Yusuf, and that's a message coming from Rani.
I was going to say Prophet Yusuf, but I was so scared of getting it wrong. Just on the story you've mentioned around the chap trying to reheat food on an aeroplane. I obviously fly with a family. We've been on holiday a number of times, and I remember having to ask the stewardess to warm some milk up for us on the plane, and they weren't allowed. They weren't allowed to do it. So they said, unfortunately, we can't put your milk into the microwave. The only thing we can do is give you some boiling water in a plate to put the milk in. Now, what's more dangerous, do you think, giving somebody a bowl of boiling water on a plane, or just simply water? So I found that completely bizarre. But yeah.
Yeah, I've got a little story here. It says a Japanese city considers banning people using phones when walking.
Okay.
I've seen this happen loads of times. Politicians in the city of Yamato will vote a new legalization that will outlaw staring at a device when walking. If the bill is passed, it will become the first such ban in Japan. Although under the current plans, officials have insisted there will be no punishment for those who are unable to tear themselves away from their phones. So I've seen it loads of times. people walking, texting, and then their foreheads smashing into a lamppost.
I think phones have taken over our lives, haven't we? We just can't seem to remove ourselves from them, unfortunately. But no, really good Japan.
Good.
Dad slammed by his mum for naming his twin daughters after TV show villains. A man who decided to name his twin daughters after 2 cartoon characters has been told by his family that he was doomed. He has doomed the siblings. The names are Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender and Eclipsa from Star vs. the Forces of Evil for his twin girls. That's mad.
It is, yeah, it is. I think a lot of couples always have the issue when it comes to naming children. I know I did. I mean, I wanted to call Ibrahim Shabazz II, but my wife wasn't. She wasn't having any of it, to be fair. Although I was the person who went to the office to get it signed and delivered, so I could have potentially done
Called
that.
it anything.
Yeah, called it anything. Yeah, but yeah, crazy story.
Crazy story. I was talking about coronavirus. I've got a few stories here. Funny stories. New Delhi, a joke is doing the rounds of Bollywood these days. It is about how filmmakers will have to revert to old, demure means of portraying physical intimacy on screen. So, such things as no kissing anymore. Because have you noticed, if you watched Bollywood films recently, there's a lot of kissing happening. And back in the day, there was no kissing. Instead, there was like 2 flowers touching each other.
Yeah.
So, because of coronavirus, this is what's going to happen now, Shabazz.
So I'm not a big Bollywood fan. I don't think I've watched anything of note of late. I watched the classics, of course, but no, I always remember any time there was even the slightest scene having to look away. I'm sure everybody has that same experience at home.
Everybody, I think, anything, even if a male touched a female, my mum used to say, shut your eyes.
Yeah. But back then, when you had to fast forward, you didn't have a remote control, so you'd have to
Rewind.
Text it or physically go up to the machine to fast forward.
I've got a story about that as well. Back in the day when both my parents were alive, my dad used to let me watch the Carry On films.
Okay.
And my mum wouldn't.
Right, okay.
And once there was some scenes, I mean, it was all comedy, really. It wasn't anything, intimate. But my parents actually got into a fight because my dad says, no, that's all right for him to watch. And my mum says, no. And so they started fighting between them. And I felt so bad that I just didn't want to watch any of the Carry On films.
Unbelievable.
Go on.
All right. Barbers are set to open for the 4th of July. Long-awaited news that barbers and hairdressers will be allowed to reopen on the 4th of July. My barber is taking bookings and I've booked my haircut. Me and my brother have booked our haircuts, but there's no walking or waiting in on the salons.
Fantastic. So good news for the hairdressing industry and the beauty industry, I think.
Yeah.
I think they've had the longest wait without work. Have you decided what you're doing with your hair?
No, I have not decided yet. So anyone, if you have any suggestions, text in or ring in. And make sure to ring in for my competition. There's no one rang in yet.
That is a bit sad. I mean, last week we had loads of I know we scared people off.
But it is easy this time.
It is easy. And there's one caller, because I listened back to the show and it really made me laugh. I think his name was Adam.
Yeah.
Adam, if you're listening, come on, mate. Try again. You never know. This week, you might just get entered into that prize draw. And it's a big prize we'll be giving away.
And Aris has promised as well that the questions are a lot easier this week.
Yeah, they are easier for people that they can actually answer them.
Fine. If we don't get a call in the next 15 minutes, then I'm going to get Khalid to do one,
Yeah.
seeing as I've done a general knowledge one. And you're Muslim, so you have to have a Muslim question.
Don't put me in that position. Don't. 01902 972 150. That's 01902 972 150. Hey guys, great show. Love listening to all the stories. Lots of love. That's from Miriam.
Thanks, Miriam.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got an audio message as well, so I don't want to really play that just in case there's something on there.
Just in case, yeah, I would recommend not playing that. But now, if whoever's sent that audio message in, if you can type it out on Facebook or send us a text message on 07440 420 432, that'd be much appreciated.
Another COVID-19 story, and this one I think is going to affect the whole world eventually. Indian weddings, Pakistani weddings, marriage ceremonies across India, Pakistan, UK have been put on hold due to the coronavirus lockdown. But some couples choose to swap their big fat weddings for small, intimate affairs. So could that be the new norm. Before, people spent thousands of pounds hiring venues, DJs, food, entertainment, cameramen, mocktails, desserts, and much more. So let's have a little chat about that, Shabazz.
I think that is the future. I think smaller weddings are going to be the future. I think I mean, I've grown up and every wedding that we've been to is 500 people, 600 people. But I see weddings are slowly starting to get smaller. I'm not saying the price is coming down any much because everything's becoming a lot more grand. But no, absolutely, I think weddings will. I really hope in the future that Ibrahim decides to go abroad to get married because I'll get a holiday out of it as well. So completely selfish, but there you go.
What do you think, Aris?
I mean, I think that would be a good idea to go abroad for a wedding. I mean, just a few people, a wedding abroad, maybe on a beach or something. That would be pretty cool.
Do you fancy getting married next year?
No, not yet.
How old are you?
I'm only 13.
3 more years.
3 more years, yeah. You better.
3
get
more
lucky.
years, we could get you married off. You know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to?
Not now.
No.
You're putting him on the spot now.
But
Khalid.
but seriously, Shabazz, you know, it's a lot of waste of money.
It is a lot. I mean, I think back to the amount we spent on our wedding. You know, we could have put that towards a lot better things. But again, you have to look on the other side. Some people, you know, really want to get married, really want to have a big do for their wedding, and you know, some girls especially would probably live for that as they're growing up. So everyone to their own. You know, we're not here to tell people what they can and can't do. But I think it is changing moving forward, absolutely.
But do you think in the future it's much more better for parents to save that money and give it to the child to say, look, this is for your new house. You know, it's a good deposit.
In hindsight, I think. I mean, I'm only saying that by experience. I think in hindsight, it's a wonderful thing. But again, when that time comes, I think it's very hard not to, you know, want to have the best food and want to have the best venues and, you know, call everybody who's called you to previous weddings. So it's easier said than done, in my opinion. Everybody's saying, no, when it's our turn, we're only going to have 100 people, a small do. It just doesn't seem to happen, unfortunately. But I think it's a blessing as well because, alhamdulillah, you know, we have big communities. We all kind of get along. And it is nice to see as well. I know that people who don't have big weddings do envy us for having big weddings. So yeah, you can take the best out of both worlds.
Did you had a big wedding, didn't you?
I did, yeah. 500 or 600 people.
Very nice.
It was nice, yeah. But again, if I could have gone back, I mean, I'm just talking personally. My wife might
Disagree,
yeah. But talking personally, I think I would have preferred to have a much smaller thing and probably use that money elsewhere. But again, people are free to have weddings as they wish, I guess. I think
Good stuff. I just had a message coming in on 14th of June 2017. A fire broke out in the 24-storey Grenville Tower. And we haven't mentioned it, so Allah bless all those souls who passed away. And thank you for reminding us, and that's from an anonymous person as well.
Yeah, that was a terrible event to hit London.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I was quite close to that. I had a few friends who had family who were actually involved in that. But something that really stuck out for me was how the community came together. So people from the Christian community, from the Jewish community, from the Muslim community. You know, I remember there's a local mosque by Grenfell Tower that opened their doors and allowed all the people to actually stay there and live there and use the facilities for a number of weeks. So it was a great way to bring people together. But nevertheless, I think the authorities can and should have done more with what happened. I think the investigations are still ongoing.
Well, a couple more minutes until our break. I could have a sip of water. We've got that competition. It's really doing my head in now because no one's rang in. So, guess what? We have I did have a caller. He's just hung up. It does say 35 missed calls. I don't know how I missed 35 missed calls.
So let me get this right. We're telling the nation that nobody's calling in, and on your PC you've had 35.
It says 35, but nothing's come up on my screen. So whoever's just rang in, if you could do that call again, you've got a few minutes to answer that. Enter the competition. 01902 972 150 972 150. You're listening to us on Facebook as well today. And on YouTube, so there's loads of different angles you could watch us, listen to us,
platforms.
and of course on the apps. Have you downloaded this app?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah,
you
I've
have.
got the app.
How did you do? Just tell the listeners how you do it.
Basically, if you're on iPhone, just go onto the App Store, search up Ramadan Radio Wolverhampton, and then it should come up, and just download it.
And Shabazz, have you downloaded as well?
Absolutely, yeah. Again, an Apple user myself, so in the same way, just search it
Yeah.
on the App Store or go to the Play Store on Android devices. You'll find it quite easily.
Ari's a message from George saying you're doing a grand job. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
George. See, loads of listeners out there.
Is that one of your buddies?
Yeah,
Aris?
that's one of my mates from school.
So send him a text, get him to enter the competition.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
He will.
Okay,
What we
great.
want is a lot of people, to enter this competition because there's a big prize on offer. I'm not going to say what it is, but
How big?
massive,
Okay.
massive.
So you want to ring
Yeah.
in?
So
the
once again,
competition.
Give them telephone numbers
The
out.
telephone number is 01902 972 150.
Once again, 01902 972 150. And as I'm saying, I have got a call coming in, but we have to go to a break. So please, whoever's calling now, give us 4 minutes. Ring back in 4 minutes, and we will get your name round the world, and of course have a little chat with you. If you want to say them any dedication as well, you could do that. So phone call finishing with 148, give us a call in 4 minutes time. Welcome back to Ramadan Radio, Wolverhampton and around the world. Loads of messages still coming up. Dave Uppel from Wolverhampton, he's found excellent show, loves listening to us, and he loves all the stories from around the world.
Yeah.
Today is the 14th of June 2020. It's 166th day of the year, 200 days left until the new year. This day in history, in 1642, first compulsory education law in America was passed in Massachusetts.
Say that again.
Did he get that?
Massachusetts.
That's what I said, but in a foreign
Yeah.
language.
Go on,
God, come on, please.
A tongue twister. That
It
one.
was. In 1834, sandpaper painted by Isaac Fisher in Vermont. In 1847, Robert Bunsen, what did he invent?
The Bunsen burner.
Correct. You're on top form today,
I'll
Shabazz.
tell you what.
In 1907, women in Norway win the right to vote. In 1913, the South African government passed the Immigration Act, which restricts the entry and free movement of Asians. It leads to widespread agitation and rioting by residents in India, led by Gandhi.
Wow.
In 1970, first German attack on England in East London, over 100 killed. In 1961, UK zebra crossings, following increasing number of accidents at uncontrolled zebra crossings, a new type of road crossing with push-button controls, which will allow pedestrians to stop traffic with flashing lights, to be introduced. Do you remember them?
I don't know.
No,
Oh yes, of course.
of course,
Of course, yes.
they're still there to
Yeah,
this
of
day.
course.
Do you use the traffic lights, Aris?
Not when I'm driving, because I don't drive. I mean,
Yeah, but this isn't for people who are driving. These are pedestrians. You know, when you want to cross the road.
yeah, I do use that. You press the button and then it flashes and
I think these days they have the countdown timer as well, don't they?
Yeah.
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 How many times have you pressed that button and it's not turned green and you've jumped them lights? You've gone across. Be
Ma-
honest.
Maybe a few times when there's no cars in sight, but I normally do wait for it to go green. so
What
can
what
go
did I say? The
past.
green cross code.
That's right. That's
Oh.
actually an offence in the States. It's called jaywalking.
Exactly. And you know, there's a few times I've done that, and the local residents in America looked at me thinking, typical. They look at you.
Typical foreigner.
In 1991, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, opened, directed by Kevin Reynolds, starring Kevin Costner. And in 2002, This Day in History, The Bourne Identity, directed by Doug Liman, starring Matt Damon, is released in the United States. And 2015, Jurassic World, first film to make $500 million
Wow.
worldwide, opened this weekend.
Wow.
And if you're celebrating your birthday, you're celebrating with the one and only, born in 1923, Jack Hayward, British financier, owner of Wolverhampton Wanderers Football Club. He was born in 1923, done marvels for
Yeah.
Wolverhampton.
I think the club's where they are today because of him.
Yeah.
In 1946, Donald Trump, 45th United States President, real estate tycoon. It's his birthday today.
Great.
Celebrate with him. 1955 was born Paul O'Grady, English TV presenter, comedian and drag queen. In 1961, Boy George was born. Steffi Graf was born in 1969 on This Day in History. And Asian Bharat Bhushan, born in 1920, Indian actor. Rani Agrawal, 1991, and singer Sabjit Cheema, born in 1968. And as I was looking into these birthdays, there was some that in the middle that were last week, and we can't mention them. And I thought these should be mentioned. Do you know this person, Shabazz? I'm directing this to you because there's no way Ari's will know.
Go on.
Faraduddin Gunshakar, 12th century Punjabi Sunni preacher, born in June 19 in 1178.
How would I know this?
If I say Baba Farid,
Yes.
same person.
Oh, right, okay.
So, normally when you hear the thunderstorms, like yesterday, there was
Yeah.
loud,
Yeah.
and people, especially Asian people, a lot of people say Baba Fried Shakalgand.
That's right.
This is Baba Fried. I've actually been to his shrine
Right.
near Buriwala as
Okay.
well. So yeah, and Suraya, Indian actress born in Gujranwala in June 15, 1929,
Wow.
and the 14th Mughal emperor, Alamgir 11th, born in Multan this week. There are your stories.
Fantastic. Just something that you mentioned around the zebra crossings. Not a story that I've got written down, but something that I was watching on TV. not so long ago.
Can we stop you there and take this call?
Yes, we need a caller.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Assalamu alaikum. Which brother is this?
It's Adam from last week.
Adam from last week.
Hi, Adam.
I thought I'd give it another try and see how good I am.
You know, Adam, I've got to say, I've got to commend you. You know, after last week's performance, you know, you was there, you was nearly there. But, you know, by getting it wrong, you've still come on this week and you're going to have another go. For that, we commend you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand you over to Aris.
Well, firstly, thank you, Adam, for calling in. Pick a
No
number.
problem.
Pick a number from 1 to 30.
1 to 30. I'll go for 21.
21. Okay. What is the name of the cave where the revelation of the Holy Quran started?
Adam, come on, the pressure is on you now. What is the name of the cave where the first revelation was revealed?
Right, okay. I think I know this one.
Yeah?
It's in my mind there somewhere, at the back of my mind.
You said that. You said this last week as well.
I'm gonna go for Cave Hira.
Yeah.
Is that
Cave
right?
Hira, correct.
Excellent.
It is
Yeah.
fantastic.
Fantastic.
You know what? You've surprised yourself,
you.
haven't you,
Yeah.
Adam?
I have.
Well done, Adam. Thank you very much. You're our first caller today. Do you want to say hello to anybody?
Hello to my parents, my sister, and my friends.
What's your sister's name?
Amna.
Amna. And your parents?
So my dad's Pervez and my mom's Rasulullah.
They're fantastic. Thank you. And what are you doing today, Adam? What's your plans for this afternoon?
I'm just going to. I just woke up. I'm gonna have my breakfast now,
Yeah.
and then I'm just gonna probably do a bit of housework, a bit of the gardening, and then off back to Manchester because I work up north in the week.
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for taking the time out and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Adam, before you go, so you've just woke up. Have you missed the first hour of the show?
Well, I've listened to.
I'm just putting you on the spot.
Parts of it when I got out of bed to get ready. I did get onto Facebook and listen to little parts of it. I've come downstairs now, and now I'm properly in my element.
Well, the fact that we were front of mind when you woke up, we appreciate that. Thank you, Adam.
That's it. Yeah, you're number one. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Adam. Take care. Bye.
Okay.
There you have it, Adam, who rang in last week. He was all over the place last week, but you know what?
Fair play.
If you don't
Good.
try, if you don't succeed once, you go again. And you know what? He's in the draw now for that massive prize, which we will reveal at the end of the month.
So we've got 2 people in the draw, myself and Adam, currently. We need more
No,
people.
we've got 3 more people as well.
Oh, of course, from last week.
From last week.
Razik Akhtar, Ibrahim Ahmed, and Ikra Khan.
Fantastic.
So those 3 people who rang in last week, they are still in the draw. We do not forget on Ramadan Radio Wolverhampton.
Fantastic.
So who wants to do the next story?
I'll do it.
Okay,
All
go.
right, this is a topic on hay fever. Hay fever sufferers face miserable weekend as the pollen bomb hits. I'm going to say 5 foods to relieve the agony.
Hang on. There's foods to stop hay
Yeah.
fever coming.
I need to know
Yes,
what this
that you
is.
can try prevent. In preparation for venturing into the great outdoors, there are certain foods you can eat that might help to soothe your symptoms. First one is have a cup of tea. Warm fluids such as tea may ease blocked nasal passages, helping you to breathe more easily. Second one, get some garlic. Even though it might make your breath stinky, garlic can be used to relieve sinus pressure, which leaves you congested during high pollen counts. Third one is vitamin C. Foods like oranges, kale, kiwis, and broccoli all contain vitamin C and are good if you suffer from hay fever. Fourth one is sweet potatoes. The delicious sweet potato could also help your hay fever. The last one is mushrooms. This is due to the fact that many mushrooms contain immune modulating molecules that can decrease inflammation, which is associated with reactions due to hay fever.
So there's loads and loads of stuff there, Shabazz, because I know you suffer from hay fever a lot, don't you?
Really bad, yeah. I have to have a tablet in the evening. I had a tablet before the show, just to save our listeners from, from listening to me sneeze. So
I want to ask all the listeners, how are they doing? How are they doing to tackle hay fever? Text in or phone in your best tips to avoid hay fever.
What I'd normally do is, like Shabazz says, I take a tablet at night time and I take one in the morning, and that really does help me.
fantastic. I know there's an injection that exists as well. Have they stopped giving that now? Or I know you could visit the doctor's surgery a few years ago to have a hay fever injection. Don't know if that's still happening, but no, really good tips there, Horace. Thank you
Hot
so
cup
much.
of tea. Can you put garlic in tea? You know, that will solve two things at once. One, you'll have hot tea, you'll have the garlic in there as well. Maybe it might not taste nice, but
Yeah.
Well, watching my wife make smoothies, and she's putting absolutely everything in there. I think you can put anything in anything.
And some messages from Babita's called in, great show guys, and from Nadia Ahmed, amazing show guys, on Facebook.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
So Facebook, we're managing to get some
Yeah.
messages coming through. Don't forget, those lines are open. I'm a bit disappointed, to be fair, Shabazz, because last week we had loads and loads of calls,
Yeah.
and this week they've just stopped.
We have had a number of missed calls, so we do apologise to anyone who may have called.
I'm on form now, so
Yeah,
any
keep looking.
call that's coming in, I'm trying to intercept it before we carry on. I've got a story here which might be a bit entertaining. Couple find a scorpion in their bananas.
Okay.
What would you do if you found a scorpion in there?
I'd throw it away.
Matt Fry discovered the insect as he was helping girlfriend Monica unpack the shopping. The pair had presumed that the creature was dead until it began moving across the floor. I mean, this would absolutely frighten me,
Yeah. It
frighten
would.
me to death.
It would.
What would you do?
Oh, scream, shout, throw it out the window. Scorpions, scorpions and snakes are my biggest.
Are scorpions even in this country? No, so I don't think we'll be finding any here, but
Well, you say that, but a lot of our bananas are imported. So
yeah, true.
you know.
Well, that's what happens, isn't it? All our food is really imported. All the
A lot of
fruit,
it- a lot
like
of it
banana, pineapples, because we can't grow it in this country. But to see a scorpion, I really don't know. We've got a call coming in.
Excellent.
Are you ready? Assalamu alaikum.
Hello.
Assalamu
Assalamu
alaikum.
alaikum.
Hello.
Who's speaking? Hello.
Prize draw.
You want to enter the draw? What I'll do is I'll hand you over to Aris.
Hello. Who's calling?
George.
Okay. So you're gonna do the English general knowledge questions.
All right.
Okay. Pick a number from 1 to 35.
Go for 12.
12. Okay. Which English town has football teams called United and Wednesday?
So George, we're looking for a football teams that are named after United and Wednesday. Which town?
Isn't it Sheffield?
Yes, that's
Well
correct.
done,
Well done, George. Fantastic. George, how old are you?
What?
How old are you, George?
13.
13. Do you want to say hello to anybody while you're on air?
I don't know.
You don't know anybody?
You don't have to, George.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
George, thank you for calling in. You're a superstar. Thank you very much. There you have it, George.
Fantastic. Great to get
Thank
a
you,
listener.
yeah.
Great
Yeah.
to get a listener.
So they do exist. There is a few of them out there.
And I got a message. Please, can you give a shout out to Hamza for his 16th birthday tomorrow? Happy birthday to Hamza for tomorrow.
So
Happy
Hamza is celebrating
16.
16 years old.
He is, yeah. Hamza, being my nephew, he's celebrating 16. He's sweet 16, they call it.
Yeah.
His height is he looks like a 25-year-old, his height wise. But no, happy birthday, Hamza, from all of us here.
Yeah.
And Shabazz, you forgot all about it.
I haven't. No, I've got him something really nice.
Have you?
But I'm not telling him what it is over the air. So.
But you didn't mention his name at all. And we've only got 11 minutes of the show left.
I know I've still got a number of dedications to do, but I'm saving them to the end. So thanks for putting me on the spot there, Khalid. There is something that I wanted to touch on. Now we were talking about zebra crossings as part of this day in history. Again, not a story I've got written down, but something I saw on TV about motorways. So an interesting fact. So what was the first motorway that was built in the UK, Khalid, do you think?
I would say the M1.
Aris, care to have a guess?
I'm not sure. No
So
idea.
a lot of the people would say the M1, and although you would be right in some capacity, the first stretch of the motorway was the stretch of the M6
Really?
from junction, I think it was from Preston, so junction 23 to around junction 31. The reason why I'm telling you this, when they did start eventually building the M1, did you know that they actually built it in a dead straight line?
I didn't know that, but maybe this listener. Assalamu alaikum. Hello?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Who's speaking?
It's Ronnie.
Hi, Rani.
Hello,
How
hiya.
are you?
I'm good, thank you. You guys are doing a great show. I'd like
Thank-
to take part in the competition.
She wants to enter the competition, Aris. I'll leave it to you then.
Okay, hello. I'm guessing you want Islamic questions then.
Go on. then.
Okay.
Yes, I'll try an Islamic
She hasn't got a
question.
choice.
Okay, pick a number from 1 to 30.
I think I'll have number 3, please.
Number 3. Okay, when did the Islamic calendar begin?
When did the Islamic calendar begin? Pressure's on. Pressure's on.
When our Prophet, peace be upon him, went from Mecca to Medina.
Yes, that's correct. When Prophet Muhammad
Wow.
sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated to Medina.
Fantastic. There you are. We have some clever listeners,
Yeah.
Shabazz.
We do, yeah, I didn't know that.
Right. You didn't?
No, I didn't. I didn't know it was that exact time. But yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you want to say hello to anybody out there, Rani?
Yeah, to all the people who are listening. And happy birthday to Hamza for his 16th birthday from me as well.
Thank you very much. Hope you have a fantastic day. Thank you for calling in. Bye.
Thank you. Hafiz.
Allah
Bye.
Hafiz. There you are. No, the calls are now starting to come in slowly. I think that this is the time people are getting up.
Yeah.
Uh,
I've got a message. Assalamu alaikum, Cal, Shabazz, and Ariz. Brilliant show, guys, from Uzma Akhtar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have difficulty sleeping, Shabazz? I know it's a wrong person to ask because I know you love your sleep, but
I do.
do you sometimes, or Aris, do you have difficulty
Sometimes
sleeping?
I have difficulty sleeping, maybe not getting in the right position, or just difficult to get to bed or sleep.
Well, heat wave sleeping. This is something that I read online and I thought I'd share it with the world. Did you know some people actually put their pajamas in the freezer before they go to sleep and then they take them out and put them on? Can you believe that?
No.
I'll just put a fan on or something.
Well, that's what common sense people would
Yeah.
do, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
But yeah, here, listen to this. Ensure there's good airflow through the house. Open windows on both sides to allow the air to pass through. Close blinds, curtains in rooms that are exposed to direct sunlight. The shade will help the room stay cooler. Have a lukewarm bath or shower before bed to encourage your core temperature to drop. Or alternatively, put lukewarm water in a hot water bowl and place it on the soles of your feet. If using a fan, place a bowl of chilled water in front of it to cool the stream of air it pushes around the room. If you're using cotton sheets, ensure it is as low as a thread count as possible, as the higher the thread count, the less breathable it is. Cotton is okay in hot weather, although it isn't the great at wicking the moisture away. So, and finally, don't worry too much about it. The biggest thing that prevents us sleeping in hot weather is that the thought, I am too hot to sleep. So, yeah, my advice would be to suck it up, accept that you might not sleep quite as well, but that if you will probably be over in a couple of days and your body will more than likely make up for the poor sleep by giving you better quality sleep once the temperature drops.
All right.
Really good information. I think I've heard something similar from when it's cold, people ironing their bed sheets to help warm things up. But no, you're giving some really good advice there. Carl, can I just finish off on the motorway story? 'Cause,
Sorry, I
2
interrupted
callers
you.
have now cut me off, so I don't think I'm going to get the story out.
They might cut you off on the motorway on the way back
maybe,
home.
Maybe. Yeah. No, I just thought it was quite a fascinating.
No, it
thing
is,
that
it
our
is.
listeners might want to hear. But when the M1 was first built, it was built in a dead straight line. Because that's the way they thought it's the best way to do it. You know, people will get there faster. However, because it was in a straight line, people couldn't work out how far the car in front was going, or because people started to get tunnel vision. Numerous accidents occurred, which is why now you see that motorways are never built in a straight line. So if you're sometimes thinking, why does this motorway keep turning left and right and left and right? That's the reason, is to stop you getting tunnel vision.
Really?
So there's an interesting
There
fact
you are.
for you.
Interesting
I didn't know
fact. Aris, have you got anything?
Yes, new game console everyone has been waiting for. The popular game console that I can't mention has a black core surrounded by curving white edging and a blue glow. 2 sequels to best-selling console releases were among the handout games announcements: Spider-Man, Horizon, GTA, Ratchet and Clank, and many more. More than 24 games were shown off in total. It's set to go on sale later this year, 7 years later after the last one. So many people remarked that the console looked like a Wi-Fi router, that the term trended on social medias shortly after the event.
Fantastic. I hope my wife's listening to that.
Are you into consoles?
I am, although I use my console more as an entertainment device, so I can watch Blu-rays.
Yeah.
I log on to different online streaming services from there, for instance.
Yeah.
So, no, great news.
Good,
Great
yeah.
news.
I've got a story that I heard over the week, and I was shocked, and so I wanted to share this with the public out there this Sunday morning. What would happen if somebody tried to sell your house without you knowing about it? Well, these solicitors tried to sell £3 million properties without their owners knowing.
Wow.
2 men from Loughborough have been jailed for attempting to sell £3 million worth of properties, even though they did not own them, and the real owners had not put them up for sale. Ashok Palmer and Said Ghaus Ali used the cover of Sterling Law Solicitors in Loughborough to launch an attempt to sell 3 London properties. The pair used bogus documents to attempt to carry out 3 sales. If they were successful, they would have made £3 million. They were caught out when other law firms saw through their deception. So,
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. How is that even possible? The things people
it
try
does
to do.
happen though, doesn't it? And people do anything to make money out there.
People go to extraordinary lengths, don't they?
Here's a message coming up. Hi, Cal, it's Babita. Just wanted to say massive thanks for last week and the lovely words you said about me. Bless you. Easier questions this week. Great show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And-
Everyone can still call in. We've got 10 minutes, maybe a little bit less.
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
We've got 3 minutes
Wow,
left in the
that's
show.
quick.
If you've got 3 minutes, let me jump in then just to... now, I did have this written down. Now, you did put me on the spot earlier, but just a happy birthday, 16th birthday to my nephew, Hamza. He's a lovely, lovely, lovely boy.
He sometimes goes to the football matches with me.
He does, yeah. He does.
Yeah.
He's very, very humble.
He's a hooligan.
He's
He
learning,
swears.
he's learning from you, you see, Khalid. That's what it is. No, so
No.
just a happy birthday from me and from Aris and Khalid, I'm sure.
Of course,
Yeah,
happy
happy
birthday.
birthday.
And you know what? He's a gentleman, really.
He is.
He's still a boy, but he's a gentleman.
He is.
He's so polite and he's so well behaved as well.
Yeah, and it just shows how time's flying, because it's showing my age that, you know, I can still remember the day he was born, and he's 16.
And Aris, have you got any final messages?
No messages, but thank you for everyone who's listened in, called in, sent any messages. Make sure you tune in next week, next Sunday, 10:30 till 12 p.m.
10:30, 12 p.m. And what we're trying to do is, I know I go on and on and on and on. This is only that 3rd show, so we need you to tell your friends, for them to tell their friends, for them to tell their friends. And that is the only way this
We'll
show
get
is going to
popular.
succeed, isn't it? So please, if you have enjoyed the show, you have to tell somebody else. And I try my best on social media, but because I'm new on social media, I only have a few friends. So there's only so much I can do. There's only so much Ramadan Radio Wolves can do. And I even asked Shabazz, I said, Shabazz, can you do it? And
See, I'm not on social media either, unfortunately, but I have got my wife to get it out on all platforms now. And Aras, if you can get any of your friends, I know
Yeah,
you're.
I have. A few of my
you-
friends have been on and listening and texting in and calling in.
Excellent.
So yeah, please do, and of course don't forget them telephone numbers as well. 01902972150. I'll just put in your phone. So all you got to do is just press a button, and that text number 07440 We've got Ijaz coming up next with the legal show, and he's got a really good topic: Black Lives Matter.
Fantastic.
So that's something to look forward to right after our show. And later on, we've got Hafiz Sohail with a fantastic show. We've got the kids on and later on as well. They take over with some really good fun fact kids on air. So loads of good stuff coming here on Ramadan Radio Wolverhampton. Once again, thank you for listening in, and thank you for all your participation and all your text messages. We'd love to hear from you. If you've got any stories that you want to share with us as well, please do share with them. 01902 972150. Final words, Shabazz?
No, thank you to all the listeners. It's been a really, really good show. Very informative. Again, any stories from around the world, please let us know.
Once again,
Right.
thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back after the break. My name's Ajaz Ali. I'm here today presenting the legal clinic. With me, I have David Perrins, and I will be having a barrister on as well by the name of Michael Trevelyan. Now, today's show is in relation to a issue which is very live and current. And Dave, you want to put the live and current in relation to Black Lives Matter. Oh yes, we have another brother here, Yusuf Shafi. How are you? Sorry, I missed you there.
Assalamu alaikum.
Dave, how are you? Well?
Yes, good afternoon, because I think it's just after 12 o'clock.
It is. Right. So it's likely to be a lively debate this morning. Oh, this afternoon even, sorry. I'm still in the morning. Bear with me. I'm joining on to Zoom to get our barrister on as well. Right, Dave, I've been looking into what you've done in life. So 2004 to 14, you worked as a consultant, primarily working in the area of anti-racism, behaviour and conflict management at Staffordshire Local Education Authority and Cotswold Community School, High School, is it?
That's correct.
Yeah, and then I see here 2008. Oh, wow, you were invited to Buckingham Palace by the Queen. Wow, that's quite an achievement, isn't it? What was that in relation to, Dave?
That's regarding the work carried out regarding anti-racism, cultural awareness and community work, both in Staffordshire, Wolverhampton and overseas in Malawi in Africa.
Wow. That's something to remember for the rest of your life. Oh, we have Michael on as well. Michael, how are you? Oops. Sorry, I hadn't put the speakers up for you. Are you well? Can you hear us?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, thanks for asking. So today's topic, as I mentioned before, is in relation to, Black Lives Matter and racism. Is it still around? How long has racism been about? And what I want it to be today, rather than me doing a Q&A, I want it to be a roundtable discussion. Obviously, we've got our legal mind here as well. I'll add a little bit to it if need be. Brother Yusuf, I think whilst we were chatting yesterday, you raised some very valid points, and I really wanted you to be on here as well today. And thank you for attending.
More than happy to.
First of all, what is Black Lives Matter? Anyone want to start?
Should I begin?
Yes,
Yeah.
go on.
Okay, doke. Inna alhamdulillahi wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, thank you, Brother Jazz, for inviting me on to our Radio Ramadan Wolverhampton show about Black Lives Matter. I mean, it's a critically important issue. It's become more relevant in these days because of the whole situation of George Floyd and his death, his tragic death in America. But the concept of Black Lives Matter, from my point of view, has been going on ever since, I would say, back to the days of the slave trade, when people were campaigning against slavery. And then it went all the way through to the Black Rights movement in the 40s and 50s in America. And then carried on till in the UK in the 60s and 70s. And then we had our Race Relations Act and our Equalities Act of 2010. So it's not a campaign which is new. And that is the shame.
Yeah.
That is the shame. The idea that after hundreds of years and certainly decades, so it could be argued that this campaign is going on for centuries.
Definitely.
But certainly it has been going on for decades. We are still in 2020 sitting here in a situation where black people in the streets of London, in the streets of Manchester, in the streets of Wolverhampton are having to stand up, and not just black people, but Asians and whites and the whole the community are having to stand up and say there is discrimination, there is unfairness, and this needs to be addressed. And a human being is worth what another human being is. So when we were chatting yesterday about it, and you said to me, come on the show, obviously because we are an Islamic radio station, we have to put on an Islamic stance. And from that point of view, I thought that is what I can hopefully... My qualifications aren't as much as you people with your experience in community work and all the rest. I'm a lowly biology teacher, I would say. But what I would like to bring to the debate today is the concept of the Islamic principles and how our Prophet 1400 years ago was talking about Black Lives Matters.
I was going to get to that point with you just now. I was trying to get into your the conversation there. Now, obviously, our Prophet said that a black man is not better than a white man is not better than a black man.
So an Arab is no better than a non-Arab.
Yes,
and white. Just based
exactly.
on your. He said it's just based on your deeds.
Yeah. So obviously, the same issue was apparent back then.
Of course.
So this has been inequality has been about for many centuries. But we are here now. We are the people who need to do something about this to get things changed. Change should happen. It should have happened back then. We had the right guidance even back then. But it's for us to act upon it. Dave, I mean, do you want to add anything to that? I mean, I believe your background is quite religious as well. So you want to add anything from your aspect?
Yes, I think, Yusuf, you gave a brilliant explanation. And again, thank you for inviting me onto the show, and greetings to all the viewers. Yes, centuries old, without a question. And there's a lot could be said in that itself. But a group of people back in 2015 in the USA started with the term Black Lives Matter. But one of the things I would like to put on the table is this view or this saying that's come across every time or a lot of time when Black Lives Matter is mentioned, you get the response, well, surely all lives matter.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting debate because there must be viewers who are probably of that view. Well, Black Lives Matter, but surely all lives matter. And I think it's getting the explanation out there and the understanding out there regarding Black Lives Matter. Yeah,
I've seen on social media a lot of backlash on people when people have said all lives matter. There's been a lot of backlash on that. I think as far as my personal understanding is, yes, of course, all lives matter, but this campaign is actually saying that but Black Lives Matter too. So you can't take away from that. You can't say, this, as I said, this is my opinion and my opinion alone. But you can't say, why are you saying Black Lives Matter? All lives actually matter. Yes, all lives matter, but give this the credit and the time and basically in order for it to change, so that all lives do matter.
Again, a very brilliant point. And if I could add to that, so let's say, take our personal families, for example, close relatives, your brothers, your sisters, your wife, your uncles, aunts, etc. Yeah. If one member of that family, for example, had an accident, had a problem, were being attacked, what would be your response? What would you actually do? And it's a question I'm just putting to both of you.
Obviously, you'd want to get in and help, wouldn't you? You want to get in and support them.
But then if another family member was to say, well, but how about me? What would be your response to that family member?
You did the same.
You tried to do the same.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that it's that one family member is being attacked, is in problems.
Yes.
Everybody else is kind of okay, okay.
Yes.
It's obvious that those of a sound mind are going to go and support
that one person.
Member.
Yeah.
But if another family member was to say, well, what about me?
Yeah.
I matter too.
Yeah.
Well, you're not hurting right now.
Yeah. Oh,
Exactly.
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. I see. I definitely
Right,
see your
right,
point.
yes,
Yes.
of
Very
course.
similar,
Valid point.
Very similar. If we all live on the same street, and my house is on fire,
Yeah.
your houses are not on fire, you know, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Again, I'm sure you're going to come and rush and help my house
Yeah.
to put out the fire.
I mean, I just to elaborate on what David's mentioned, in a sense, Black Lives Matter is a hashtag. It is a statement which has gone across the world now, and people are using it. And to try to denigrate that, to try to reduce that by saying, well, all lives matter, to try to dilute that, I would say, is not appropriate. It shouldn't be happening. And the reason for that is because, yes, all lives matter, but as Dave said, at this particular time, black lives are under threat. At this particular time, black lives are not, or black people are not being treated equally.
Sure.
And therefore, the issue of black people, the life is equally important, but the issue of black people actually matters more. And that's where I think a lot of people would want to just sort of smudge over the issue of Black Lives Matter and say, you know, we need to be worrying about everybody. Well, fine, but you haven't worried about everybody historically, and you're not going to in the future. So this is a particular issue which we need to raise and we need to put into your face regularly. And I use those terms advisedly. We have to put it into your face, because if we just write about it in the newspapers or in journals or in articles or in scholarly debate, you will not get the impact. Whereas if you do stand on the street with a placard and say, I'm here, I'm standing here, and I'm discriminated against, then people will actually think, you know what, I better now start listening to this.
Absolutely. I mean, I heard a comment somewhere saying that, well, why are we bringing someone else's problems home? American issue, why bring it here? But I thought, well, that person, whoever made that comment, didn't actually think about things that actually, the whole world has this issue.
Of course.
It's not just about America.
And that's why it's a perfect opportunity to raise awareness, educate people, and in some cases it's going to be about those people who really want to be educated. From a Muslim perspective, for those people who are true about following the Quran.
Yeah.
From a Christian perspective, for those people who are true about following the true values of the Bible, so to speak.
Yeah.
And if anybody turns away from that, they've got to question their personal faith.
Exactly.
From definitely from my perspective, and I have something I call the League of Racism. And the way I look at it, if we all familiar with football,
yeah,
you got the Premier League, the Championship, League One, League Two, then you got non-league, etc. But for those that have suffered the most racism, black people are in the Premier League. I'm going to go as far as to say that following behind are our Muslim brothers and sisters. Then it's probably some other brown-skinned people. Then and you can see the picture that I'm trying to paint.
Yeah, definitely. It does exist, and as you say, it's not just yes, it is not just against black people. Us as Muslims or Asians, if I can use the term, back in the 70s and 60s, Paki bashing was a term that was used.
Of course.
If
If I could just follow on from the point that Dave made, in a sense, what we've got is a situation, if we look at it historically, you had the slave trade. And people, listeners may be thinking, well, why is he going back to these hundreds of years? Ever since the 15th century, slave trade was prevalent and going on, maybe slightly after. But what you've got there is a situation where initially the the Roman Catholic Church, I should say, was complicit in racism. It was complicit in the slavery, i.e. the Roman Catholic Church and the Pope knew it was going on, and they thought it's perfectly fine and acceptable. But over the passage of time, what you found, it was the Christian churches, and the Anglican churches more so, who started then call out and saying, no, this is not a part of our Bible. And this is not a part of Christianity. And we cannot use any type of theories or ideas. Theologically speaking, this is fundamentally wrong, and the Bible says it. And what that led to is a whole generation, and not one generation, but I would say many, many generations of slaves looking to the church for that solace, looking to the church for that support, and the church stood behind them. And it was the church, and especially in the deep south of America, where we know it was the church who was effective in actually bringing the issues. So whether you're looking at the movements of the 1960s or even prior to that. So when you bring in faith, whether it's the Christian Bible or whether it's the Muslim Quran or whether it's the Jewish Torah or any other book, what we know is that from all of their standpoints, they will always say that this is haram, this is not allowed. All people are equal.
Sure.
Now, of course, there's interpretation, isn't there? And some people want to take a scripture of the Bible or a scripture of the Quran and misinterpret it and try to say, well, therefore, the white people will go to heaven first, and the Asians will go in last, and and the Jamaicans will go in number 3 position or whatever, But fundamentally, the unifying point for all faith is that this is an issue which is clear cut, that people are equal, man is equal on earth. We're all sons of Adam and Eve. And as a result of that, we are all children of one parent, and we are children under one God. And through that, we need to make sure that we love each other and look after each other in that vein.
Well, the key word
we
there.
have Hazrat Bilal, who you mentioned first person to go into paradise. With the he would be the first one.
Exactly.
Yeah. So he was black.
And that's interesting. And the key word there is love, and that unconditional love.
Yeah.
So how could love be hate?
Yeah.
How could love discriminate against somebody because of the colour of their skin? So again, we go back to what an individual really believes.
Yeah.
But even going back, I'm the descendants of slaves. My parents were born in Jamaica, so obviously, as you know, as transatlantic slave trade from that perspective. No, let's put it this way. Let's look at Edward Colston. You'll be familiar with the statue that was taken down in Bristol.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was put up in the eyesight of people around Bristol and surrounding areas as this great man who done great works. And maybe a lot of people didn't realise that, something, this man was responsible for taking 84,000 slaves from Africa. On that transatlantic journey, 19,000 slaves actually died. And that journey itself was horrific. And it's something I think it's good for people to have knowledge about.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, and then, as you said, let's roll it forward a little bit. So remember, black people were taken from Africa and brought to Western shores. Now look at the civil rights movement. What did it take to really spark off the movement? So a lot of people put it down to Rosa Parks sitting on the bus, but it was Claudette Colvin. She was 15 at the time. A few months, she actually sat on a bus and refused to give up her seat for a white woman, and she was subsequently arrested. It was attributed to Rosa Parks did the same thing, but she had to carry the flag, and time wouldn't allow to explain the reasons why. So we've got Martin Luther King, we've got Malcolm X, we've got some great activists. And then we move on to Britain, for example. The amount of racial discrimination that took place when our parents' generation first came to this country. No blacks, no Irish, no dogs. Schools. And if I could just share a little bit of my personal story. I'm 55 now. Yeah, obviously born in the era of the civil rights movement, born during that Windrush generation.
Yeah.
And my experience, even at school, well, at first I didn't understand what was happening. At age 10, my older brother, in those days, we used to build our own bikes, couldn't afford to buy them. And he taught me how to ride. And I was riding down the Stafford Road on the pavement, stopped by 2 policemen and started calling me Sambo, you're supposed to be riding on the road, blah, blah, blah. Racial abuse. And that was the first time I could really say, well, these people are supposed to be protecting me. That's what my parents taught me. But they're abusing me. At school, things like go back to the jungle. I don't know if you remember the roller drome in Wolverhampton after a roller skating place. where we used to congregate waiting for our last bus, and the police chased a black boy from out of the Manda Centre, which was open at the time, because he'd broken into I think it was one of those stores that sells musical goods. And the policeman actually couldn't catch up with this boy, and the gap was getting bigger and bigger. So they stopped, came over to the crowd where I was in, and actually pointed at me and said, "He'll do." Pulled me out of that crowd, took me back into the Manda Centre, took my shoes off me, put me in the police car, "You little coon, you've had it now," blah, blah, blah. Took me down to Birmingham New Road Police Station, where they accused me of breaking into the shop. They took my shoes off me to plant my shoes as evidence. Fortunately, my dad was a police special at the time and had worked with this policeman who had a previous history of doing similar things. So I was let go. This is as a young man up to the age of 15, and this is similar to the stories of a lot of black people up and down the country.
Yeah.
The amount of times I've been stopped in my motor vehicle, as a youngster especially, I couldn't even count. So what I'm trying to say, there's a heavy weight. George Floyd shouted out, "I can't breathe."
Yeah, many times.
Eric Gardner shouted out, "I can't breathe." The black community have been shouting out for centuries,
We can't breathe.
"I can't breathe."
Exactly.
And the systematic racism in this country has got a lot to answer for. And I'm hoping we are now seeing a turn of the tide in terms of, and I'm saying everything must be done for me in love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
A turn of the tide in seeing more people from other nationalities and backgrounds now standing up, waking up and smelling the coffee and realizing, something, this stuff's real. This stuff's real. And the real fight is those who are racist against those who want peace and equality for all man, irrespective of colour of skin. I'll stop there for now.
One of the things I want to just bring out from what Dave said is the concept of who exactly is behind this. And it's very easy and very convenient for us to say it's the white people. Because actually racism is endemic.
True.
And racism and the love of your own above others is to some extent, I would say, natural. And we need to understand that as human beings. And I think we need to overcome that. We need to fight against that. Because I actually think racism exists just as much within the Asian community.
I agree.
Against black people, against white people. Likewise, racism exists within the black community against white people and against Asian people. And what you often get is this, within the campaigning, it's a black-white issue.
Yeah.
And it isn't. And it isn't. There's a lot of racism going on from a lot of people everywhere. What we've got, though, is black people are particularly affected by it. They are particularly targeted. And one of the things we found, especially in the 80s, is the media were behind that. So there was this concept that if you've got, for example, a black person running down the street, he's running away from a crime. He isn't running because he's going to catch the bus, or he's running just because he needs to, be somewhere in a hurry. He's actually running because he's got somebody chasing him and he's committed a crime. And you had the media continually putting black images on the papers and in the news, informing you that if you're going to get mugged, it's going to be by a black man. If you're going to get beaten, it's going to be by a black man. And that level of racism was prevalent. However, criminologists will tell you that even in those days, far more crimes at a pro rata basis, so not based on populations, but just on the base of pro rata, far more crimes were done by white people.
Yusuf, you're going deep, man. You're starting to get to the root, But
well, the thing is, we need to get to the root.
Yeah, but could I just say something? I just want to challenge one thing in terms of racism and the definition of racism. Yeah, from my perspective, it's very difficult, and some would even go as far as to say that black people cannot be racist, can be racially prejudiced, but not racist. When we're talking about racism is about power and control.
Exactly, yeah.
What power and control do black people have?
No, I agree.
And then you mentioned the media. Who runs the media? Who runs the government? Who's pulling Boris Johnson's puppet strings? And these are the kind of things that we really need to be looking at. Because if the government and previous governments and big society, if you want to call it that for now, really wanted all people to be equal, that could be done. If they were really looking at the equality, irrespective of colour of skin, that would be done. But there's definitely that control and power, and very much from a white supremacy perspective.
Right, we've only got a few seconds before we go into the break. So, if anyone wants to join in this conversation or debate, you can call us on 01902 972 150 or WhatsApp us any messages that you want to relay. 07 074 20432. So that's 074 404 20432. Thank you. We'll be back after the break.
Yes. No, that's quite all right. Actually, one of the most important things for somebody in my position to do, I think, is to listen to other people. So that's absolutely fine. No problem. Hmm. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yep. Ooh. Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Welcome back, guys. This is the legal clinic with me, Ejaz Ali, and today I have here with me Brother Yusuf Shafi and also David Perrin, and online we also have Michael Trevelyan, who is a barrister. Now, before the break, we covered the background as to our topic that we're discussing today of Black Lives Matter. I think we should go over to Michael now and have his say about the law and, do we have any acts in place? Have we had any acts in place, over the years in relation to race and equality? Michael?
Yes, thank you. It's quite a big question, this, but in terms of the legal position, really we can go as far back as one likes, but perhaps a good place to start would be the Race Relations Act of 1965. This was really the first piece of legislation in the UK that explicitly sought to deal with racial discrimination.
Yeah.
And what the Act did is it prohibited discrimination on the grounds of colour, race, or ethnic or national origins in public places. And it was a direct response, in my view, to increased concerns in the early and mid 1960s about racial inequality. We've got to see this, of course, in its proper post-war context. There was a great deal of immigration, particularly Asian and Black immigration into the UK following World War II. And steps were taken by the 1965 Act to try and outlaw any sort of discrimination in public places on the basis of race. That Act was then repealed and replaced with the 1968 Race Relations Act. But it is quite surprising, just stopping there for a moment, to think that there was really no legislation dealing with the question of discrimination, dealing with the question of racism, until really the mid-1960s.
Yeah.
And as the other contributors have rightly said, in terms of the historical context, one can go all the way back to the abolitionist movement or even further back than then. But it's not until the mid-1960s that steps are actually taken to try and address discrimination. So we then had the 1968 Act, again, intended to try and tighten the law in respect of race relations. That was then followed by the 1976 Act, which repealed the earlier ones. And again, the intention there was to slightly broaden the areas in which discrimination was to be prohibited. So you'll recall that the 1965 Act was focused on racial discrimination in the public
places. Yeah.
Exactly. And what the subsequent Act in 1976 did is that it sought to try and get into the private sphere, as it were, and try to address racism and discrimination more broadly. So, for example, something which became effectively illegal by the 1976 Act, which hadn't, strictly speaking, been illegal before, was discriminating against somebody when they were, for example, applying for a mortgage. Because that was seen as a private matter, it actually wasn't until the mid-1970s that it became illegal to discriminate against people in that context, for example. Then, of course, through the sort of 80s and 90s and into the new century, matters of race relations continued, but there was very little in the way of explicit legislation addressing that until we get right up to 2010 with the Equality Act.
Sure.
Now, the 2010 Act is an astonishing piece of legislation. It seeks to really define and delineate anti-discrimination law in all of its forms. So it isn't simply addressed to race relations as the previous legislation was, but of course it includes racial discrimination as well. But the 2010 Act deals with protected characteristics, so age, disability, that sort of thing, race, religion,
equal pay.
beliefs. Pardon me?
Equal pay was included in that as well, wasn't it?
That's exactly right, because unequal pay would be an example of sex discrimination. So that's exactly right. So the 2010 Act is now our current situation. In terms of the broad attempts to defeat originally racism and then latterly discrimination more generally. There were, of course, for the sake of completeness, I should mention, there were a range of anti-discrimination laws up until the 2010 Act. So you mentioned equal pay. There was actually the Equal Pay Act of 1970, the Protected Discrimination Act of 1975, and the Disability Discrimination Act of 1995. But the 2010 Equality Act really sought to consolidate everything into that one legislation and to make it illegal to directly or indirectly discriminate against somebody on the basis of their protected characteristics, which, as I say, includes race. And it's also worth mentioning the impact of the Human Rights Act of 1998, which, of course, gave effect in UK law to the European Convention on Human Rights from the 1950s. And again, an astonishingly impressive piece of post-war legislation, the European Convention on Human Rights. And that is a matter which I think, particularly in the current context, becomes quite interesting, because the Human Rights Act incorporates, for example, freedom of expression with the right to protection for your property. And one of the interesting questions that's arisen as a context of these Black Lives Matter protests recently is, how do we balance what appear to be competing human rights? For example, one of your other contributors mentioned the Edward Colston statue. And it's a difficult question to know how, on the one hand, we balance the right to protection of property against the right of freedom of expression. Because, of course, a lot of Black Lives Matter protesters may, with considerable justification, say that the pulling down of that statue was an exercise of their right to free expression. Whereas, of course, people that are on the opposite side of that debate may say that it was an infringement of the protection of property. And so it seems to me that we are now at a stage where the legislation is there, but it's important now to see how socially we balance what might be seen as competing areas of legislation in order to try to get to a fair and proportionate outcome. And coupled with that, of course, is, generally speaking, things like the right to protest and the right to free assembly, which have been enshrined in our law for hundreds of years. And as I say, when one looks at all of these things together, it is now a question of trying to balance, rather than necessarily a question of trying to impose further legislative change.
Sure.
And this is something which makes, I think, the Black Lives Matter protests rather different to previous historical protests that have been anti-racism. Of course, if one looks at the abolitionist movement, for example, as a very clear example, the abolitionist movement was intended to pass legislation to make slavery unlawful. And when that happened, the abolitionist movement had fulfilled its goal. With the current Black Lives Matter protests, the difficult thing is that really what's trying to be effected, and quite rightly in my view, is a societal change. As I understand it, there isn't any cry for further legislation or for anything to be outlawed that isn't already outlawed. But it's a question of trying to develop a change in attitude, change in approach within society. And that's what makes the Black Lives Matter protest so important. But also, it's very difficult to know if they are going to be successful, because it's hard to define success without a tangible goal.
If I can just interject at that point, I value all the comments made, and I think they're very pertinent and in many ways very precise, as far as clearly from the point of view of the legislation and the Acts of Parliament, which our learned barrister has informed us of. However, I would want to take issue with one thing: the concept that you require a societal change, and therefore it is difficult to see why the Black Lives Matter campaigners are doing what they're doing, because a societal change is more difficult to effect. Does sort of run against the grain for me, because from my point of view, what I would suggest is that yes, all of the legislation on paper is there, and what you now need is implementation. What you now need to do is take it to a point where everything which is in black and white on pieces of paper on the statute is put into effect in the real world. Now, what the Black Lives Matter campaigners are saying is it's not. And what is required by the people who can effect those legislation, who can put into action, who can actually want to monitor and track progress of the implementation, is what is required by them, is to make sure that happens. To make sure that the discrimination does not take place. I mean, if you look from an education point of view, just look at the education gaps between black children and other children. If you look at what's going on in the prisons, the prison population, there is a reason why the vast majority of the prisoners, that's incorrect, but proportionally a greater number, according to from their own populations, a greater number of prisoners are black or Muslim. What's going on there? And why aren't the powers that be carrying out their duty of care to look at these issues? And why are they not then putting in place policy to say we will actually remedy these problems? So the campaign isn't about saying we need new statute. I would agree with you that everything is written in black and white and it's fairly coherent from that point of view. Where Black Lives Matters is very important is saying Boris Johnson or whoever is in charge at a local level or at a national level, now put it into implementation, now do something about it. So that's one thing I'd want to raise. Yep. The other thing I'd want to raise is just because you can maybe address this other issue as well, the conflicting interest you said between the rights of the people who'd want to protect the statue and the rights of the people who'd want to knock the statues down. We have within Islam the idea that if you take the Grand Mosque of Mecca, the Holy Mosque, which is the most important site for Muslims on the planet, if you were to take that on one side and the life of human beings on another side, so somebody said, look, we'll blow it up, we'll knock down the whole of the Kaaba and we'll knock down the whole of the mosque on one side, but on the other side, we'll save one human life. What's more important? And we've all been taught throughout our own Islamic education that the most important thing is the life of one human being. Blow up the mosque, it doesn't matter. The mosque is just bricks and mortar. It's timber, it'll be rebuilt, it's just money. We'll just put the money in later on and we'll build a brand new, even bigger mosque. One human being is more important. In exactly the same way, one statue, doesn't matter who it belongs to and it doesn't matter who it represents and doesn't matter what it is, it's bricks and mortar. If as a result of that you can send out the message that we absolutely are now against that whole idea of slavery, the whole concept of discrimination. And so bricks and mortar, let it go. Damage, let it happen. Human beings are being killed on the streets. George Floyd was a person who died. That is more important an issue, and that is where we want to set our priorities of protection. So let the statue go. If a statue of Churchill was to go, so be it. It can be replaced. But the important thing is, are we actually protecting human beings? So I just want to come back to on what you mentioned on your issues.
Yeah, let me just come back on that, if I may. The issue, I think, with the legislative point that I was making, and the contextual and historical difference between, for example, abolitionists and Black Lives Matter today, it's not. I agree with you entirely. It's not at all difficult to understand why Black Lives Matter protesters are protesting today. And of course, I'm certainly not naive enough to suggest that racism has been solved by the passing of legislation. And here we are 10 years post Equality Act. And it seems to me the country and the world is even more racially divided than it was when that legislation was passed. So what I'm not suggesting, let me be absolutely clear, is that there is no need or no purpose behind today's protests because the law has somehow solved racism. Of course it hasn't. The point that I was making was that it's actually going to be a more difficult task for the protesters of today because there is no tangible goal. The goal is to effect exactly the sort of societal change that you were then just referring to, because it's one thing to put the legislation in place, but as you rightly say, we need to effect change in attitudes, change in culture, and change in approach, both within individuals and within organisations, and that's going to lead to this legislation actually being effective. So I agree with you entirely. There is every reason for these protests, but my point was simply that it's actually going to be a harder task to know what success looks like when there isn't a clearly defined goal. As for the statue of Edward Colston, again, I agree with you. If it serves a purpose in pulling the statue down, then so be it. My perspective, of course, as a lawyer, is that one often has to look at where laws conflict and where laws collide. And it seems to me that there is potentially a conflict between the desire to, as it were, vindicate anti-racism, which is a perfectly legitimate desire, by pulling down the statue, and the desire to maintain some degree of integrity of a system of property. Now, I'm not suggesting that pulling down the statue was wrong morally. In fact, I think it was probably the right thing to do to send exactly the message that you say. But in terms of the legal perspective, it does rather rub up against the right to protection of property. So it seems to me there's an interesting legal conflict there. But that isn't to say for one moment that the moral points that you make are in any way invalidated. In fact, I think I agree with them.
Could I interject? Thank you, Michael. I remember before the 1992 Cricket World Cup final, Imran Khan, the then cricket captain for Pakistan, when the Pakistani team were deflated. They were in a place where they felt like they were getting backed in a corner. And I don't know if you remember, he actually said possibly one of the great pep talks of all times. And he mentioned in that pep talk about tigers being backed in a corner. And what do tigers do when they're backed in a corner? And they're going to attack. So what we are seeing now are people that have been backed in a corner since day one, so to speak, are fighting back. And the other thing about fighting back that we've got to remember, and we're speaking a little bit about law, which is definitely not my field, is that if the oppressor who makes the law is not actioning the law, then people are going to fight back. If the oppressor who chooses to put a statue of a slave trader out for display, and chooses not to tell the whole story, people are going to fight back. It's really as simple as that. And these are the messages that need to get out there. We're talking about how do we move forward, for example. Yeah? For how many years has, for example, the black community been fighting for black British culture to be a compulsory part of the national curriculum? So are you telling me that the oppressor who makes the law, who makes these decisions, does not know that? The oppressor knows that. That's why people are fighting back. And there's much more that could be said in that particular sphere. And we've got to understand, I don't condone the rioting. I don't condone the violence. But if you notice, even that, it's been from the anti-racism brigade, it's been very minimal, but the way the media has portrayed it has been very different. People are going to fight back.
To just follow on from that, one of the issues which our learned barrister suggested was what are the tangible things that we need to be able to be campaigning for, and that's quite an easy question to answer. When you look at the data, you've got to go down to the numbers. When you look at the data, there are clear disparities between a whole host of different indicators, whether it be housing, whether it be education, whether it be prison population, whether it be pure simple wealth and economic potential, whether it be issues around the victims of crime, black people being victims of crime. In every single indicator, what you have is, we've got a call come through, in every single indicator, just quickly finish this point, every single indicator, what you have is black people being disaffected, being particularly disadvantaged. What we need to do is look at those numbers and say, what can we do to push those numbers and make them equal?
Right, we have a call. Hello?
Hello?
Hi, who's this, sorry?
Hello, can you hear me?
Is that Mr. Shah?
Yes, it is.
How are you?
Hello, Zahid, how are you?
I'm all right, fine, thank you. Am I on the radio?
You are. You're live.
How are you? First of all, can I say hello to everybody? I think I'm speaking to Jazz.
You're speaking to all of us.
Okay, how you doing, Yusuf?
I'm well.
Dave, Jazz, you good?
Yes.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, all good. Yeah, carry on. What's your question, or what would you like to say? Right. We've only got 4 minutes left.
What it was I was just calling in to say that first of all, it's an excellent show that you guys that you put together. I've been listening to it, and I was just going to say that I think an hour isn't enough, is it really?
I agree.
Maybe you need to look at doing something like this again. With a bit more, sort of info. And I think it's been very knowledgeable. All I was going to say was that I've been working very closely with the black community in Wolverhampton over the last, God knows how many years, 20 years, right? And in all fairness, a lot of what Brother Yusuf and Dave Perrin have said is completely correct. But what I would like to add to all this is that, I'm hoping that you can look at a show in the future where you can look at how, at the moment we're talking about Black Lives Matter, but it's also about how, the Asian community view black people. You have touched on it slightly today, but I'm looking at further as, marriages where you have sort of a black person marrying an Asian person, and the kind of stigmas that are attached to it, and the kind of prejudices that we have as well as a community. And I think that needs to be explored a bit more. And I think at this current moment of time, that was the only point I wanted to make. But I'm just hoping that you can look at this a bit more in the future.
Mr. Shah, can I interject?
Yeah.
I think you raised a very good point. And I think if there's a question that should be asked for us to measure whether we are racist or not is, would you allow your child to marry a black person? And each of us, let's ask ourselves that question. And I'm a person that does a lot of reflection. And I've been asked on a number of occasions, would you allow your children to marry outside of the black race? My answer is simple, yes. As long as the person loves my picnic, treats my picnic right, yes.
Absolutely.
If I could just follow, because there's not much left. The key message we do need to send listeners, I think, which is very important, is whatever we've discussed today, and what we are possibly going to discuss in future shows of a similar vein, is we are all talking about peace and love. We're not ever condoning any type of violent expression or any type of backlash which results in damage to property or damage to health or human life. And we, as a radio station, obviously want to raise these concerns, but it's very easy for listeners out there to somehow think, therefore it is allowed, therefore I am a tiger in the corner and I can now fight back. When we say fight back, we mean that figuratively. So just very important, just the last...
1 minute left.
Okay, if I could just leave several things. Thank you. If I could just leave several things with the viewers in terms of if you're serious about fighting racism. Yeah. Number one, your exposure can change the outcome. So basically, I'm saying, what do you do? Step in, confront it, and we're not saying confront it in a derogatory way, but you can confront it in a very positive way.
Yeah.
You don't have to be okay with it.
We've had a message from someone who says that you need to unite people, otherwise the movement can't reach its fullest potential, which is very true. We need to confront it and work together. Also, I've had another message from one of the other presenters saying that they're touching on the psychological implications of Black Lives Matter and Floyd in their mental health and emotional well-being show on the 4th of July, so please tune in. And thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for listening. We will try and have another show. Thank you. Bye.